The woman waited outside the gate longer than she needed to, not because she was unsure, because she already knew. The guard looked at her clothes before he looked at her face. Then he spoke politely, but not kindly. "You can't come in, ma'am." She didn't argue. She didn't even step closer. "I only came to see my son." The gate closed anyway. And at that moment, no one realized they had just locked the owner out. That house carried his name. But long before the walls stood tall, she had already given everything for it. She never wanted to live there. She only wanted to see if her son still knew her, in her bag. She kept one paper for 20 years. An elderly mother came to visit her son's home inside a wealthy, gated estate. The kind of place that didn't smell like cooking or children. The kind of place that smelled like air freshener, cut grass, and rules. Even the road leading in looked train smooth, quiet, obedient, with palm trees planted at even intervals like they were standing at attention. She stood at the entrance with her small handbag tucked close to her ribs, as if holding it tighter could keep her courage from spilling out. Her wrapper was clean but faded from years of washing. Her headscarf was tied carefully, the way women tie themselves together when life has tried to loosen every knot. It wasn't the first time she had come to a gate like this, but it was the first time it belonged to her son. She looked up at the security barrier. The metal arm was down. A guard booth sat to the side with tinted glass and a small fan turning lazily inside. The estate's name was printed in gold letters on a stone wall large, enough to be proud, cold enough to be warning. Her eyes moved across the cameras perched above the entrance, the kind that watched you without blinking. She could feel herself being measured before she was even spoken to. She waited, not because she didn't know what to do, because she did. She cleared her throat softly and stepped forward. The guard emerged slowly, not in a hurry, not threatened. He was young, tall, wearing a crisp uniform that made him look more important than he was. His face was blank, professional, practiced, trained to be empty. He didn't greet her. He looked at her from head to toe first, like he was reading a list of reasons she didn't belong. Then his eyes landed on her face. "What do you want?" he asked. The way he said it wasn't a question. It was a checkpoint. The mother swallowed. Her voice came out gentle, even when her stomach tightened. "I came to see my son. He lives here." "House." "Number." The guard held up his hand. "Madam, you can't come in." The words dropped like a small slap. She blinked once, slowly, the way people do when they're deciding whether something is worth arguing about. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to see him. Only for a moment." The guard's mouth tightened. "Do you have an invitation?" An invitation, as if motherhood needed a printed pass. She shifted her handbag, her fingers curled tighter around the strap. "I don't have invitation." "Then you can't enter," he repeated louder, like repetition could turn cruelty into policy. Behind her, a black SUV rolled up. The engine purred like it had never struggled for anything in its life. The guard stepped away from the mother immediately and waved the SUV forward with a quick salute, barrier lifting as if the vehicle was royalty. The SUV passed through. The barrier dropped again. And the mother was still outside. The guard returned to her with impatience now. "I said you can't enter." The mother didn't move. Her eyes remained on the inside, on the neat road curving away toward the houses, on the manicured hedges, on the line of cameras, on the silence that lived there. Somewhere behind those walls was her son. The boy she once carried on her back with a cloth tied across her chest. The boy she once fed with hands trembling from exhaustion. The boy who ran barefoot on red soil and laughed like the world couldn't touch him. Now the world had touched him so much. He didn't even look like he belonged to her memories anymore. She took a breath. "Please, just tell him his mother is here." That word made the guard's expression shift into annoyance. "Which mother?" "Madam, see yourself. You think they will open gate because you say you are mother?" A heat rose behind her eyes, but she refused to let it fall. Crying at the gate would make her exactly what they already believed she was: poor, needy, unworthy. "Call him," she said. "Just call him." The guard sighed loudly and dialed, speaking in a tone that sounded almost amused. She couldn't hear the words, but she heard enough to understand she was a story on the other end. A minute passed. 2, he said. "Wait." She didn't smile. Women who have waited their whole lives do not celebrate waiting. They endure it. On a balcony of a cream-colored mansion, a woman stepped out. Beautiful in the polished way money makes people certain of their place. She leaned on the rail and looked down. "Who is that?" The guard straightened immediately. The mother lifted her chin. "I came to see my son. I came to see Chike." The wife's face changed, not into welcome, into cold. "He doesn't have a mother here." The words landed softly but cut deep. "I'm his mother. Tell him I'm here. My husband is busy. This is a private estate." Private. As if motherhood was public nuisance. "Please. Just let me see him. Security, tell her to leave." But the mother did not move. "Tell him his mother came." The wife turned away and disappeared inside. Seconds later, the front door opened. A man stepped out. Tall, clean, expensive, walking like he belonged to the life behind him. Chike, her son. For one heartbeat, her face softened and she lifted her hand slightly. He came closer. Stopped behind the barrier. He looked at her clothes, her scarf, her worn bag, then at the guards. "What is this?" "Sir, she said she is your mother." He looked at her again. No warmth, no anger, just calculation. "That's not my mother." Silence. "My mother is dead. She died years ago." The mother's lips parted, but no sound came out. He didn't hesitate. "Close the gate." The guard pressed the button. The barrier moved. The gate slid shut slowly, smoothly, politely erasing her. She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She just watched her living son deny her, like she was a rumor he no longer needed. The gate closed in front of her. It didn't arrive like a speech. It arrived the way truth often does, quietly, in pieces, like rain seeping through a roof you've been ignoring for years. After the gate shut, the mother didn't turn around immediately. She stood there long enough for the guard to look away in discomfort, long enough for a passing driver to slow down and then speed up again, pretending not to see the scene at the entrance. Then she moved. Not fast, not broken, just steady. She walked along the outside wall of the estate, her sandals scuffing the pavement, her small handbag tapping against her hip with each step. The gold letters on the stone sign behind her glittered in the sun, but none of that light touched her face. Because she was carrying something heavier than humiliation. She was carrying years. And those years began to unfold, not in her mouth, because she didn't explain herself to people who had already decided what she was worth, but in the small details her body could not hide. The way her shoulders sat forward, as if they were used to holding weight. The way her fingers clung to her handbag strap, as if it was the last thing in her life that still listened to her. The way her eyes stayed dry, not because she didn't feel pain, but because she had practiced surviving too long to waste tears in public. If you had known her before Lagos swallowed her son, you would have recognized her differently. Back then, she belonged to a village where the roads were red earth and the mornings smelled like smoke and cassava. She belonged to a place where everybody knew whose child you were, and where poverty didn't have to introduce itself, because it lived in every cracked wall and every empty bowl. Her name was Mama Nika, though most people just called her Mama Chike, because in their world motherhood was both identity and title. Her husband had died early, not dramatically. He had just feta, a fever that wouldn't break, a cough that wouldn't stop, and then a house that became quieter than it should have. What he left behind wasn't inheritance, it was responsibility. A small piece of land at the edge of the village, a mud house patched too many times to pretend it was strong, and a boy with bright eyes who asked questions bigger than their life could afford. Chike was different from the start. He didn't just want to live, he wanted to escape. When other boys ran after tires and played football in the dust, Chike sat near the elders and listened to stories about Lagos like it was a kingdom. When the teacher wrote words on the board, his eyes followed them like they were a map. Mama Nika saw it, not the ambition, the hunger. The kind that can either build a man or destroy him. So she did what Nigerian mothers have always done when they don't have much, but refuse to watch their children shrink. She began to give. At first it was small things. She sold eggs from her chickens one by one and saved the coins in a tin under her mat. She woke before sunrise to carry water, cook for other people's ceremonies, wash clothes until her hands wrinkled, and accept work that paid little but didn't ask questions. She never complained because complaining doesn't fill stomachs. Then the day came when Lagos stopped being a dream and became a decision. Chike got accepted. A school, a chance, a path. The letter arrived creased, passed from hand to hand before reaching her. People congratulated her like congratulations were currency. They said her son would become somebody. They said she would finally rest. But when the village quieted and the celebration ended, Mama Nika sat alone outside her house staring into the night. She didn't have the money, not even close. She looked at her small piece of land, the last thing her husband left, the only security she owned, the only thing standing between her and begging. She stared for a long time, then made the kind of decision only the poor understand the cost of. The next morning she went to a land buyer. She didn't negotiate. She simply said, "I want to sell." The buyer warned her it was her last land. She nodded. He offered too little. She accepted anyway. Education doesn't wait for fair deals. She returned with the money tied in a wrapper and told no one where it came from. When neighbors asked, she said God provided. When relatives suggested Chike stay and learn a trade instead, she answered with one sentence, "My son will go." On the day Chike left, she placed the money in his hands like a blessing and gave him a small worn Bible. No matter what Lagos shows you, remember where you came from. He hugged her quickly, already half gone. The bus left in dust, and she walked back to a house too large for one woman. Lagos took her son and demanded payment every month: fees, food, books, opportunities. Each call sounded farther away. "Mama, I need help," and she found a way. She worked more, slept less, cleaned houses in town, walked home in darkness, ate less so he could eat more. Some weeks she lived on gari and water. She never told anyone about her pain, not the fainting, not the exhaustion, not the nights she couldn't stand straight. She wasn't building a story for admiration. She was doing what needed to be done. Years passed. Chike graduated but didn't return. Not because he couldn't, because Lagos had already grown larger than home. She called gently, never demanding. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mama," he always answered. Then his voice changed. "Mama, I found something. I can start a business." She asked the only question that mattered. "How much?" The number made her stomach drop, but he said, "If I do this, we will never suffer again." That word "we" was enough. She borrowed, labored, sold her best wrapper and jewelry, and sent the money again and again. She never asked for proof. She trusted the boy she raised. Soon he stopped saying business and started saying company, partners, expansion. She listened and asked only, "Are you okay?" That was all she wanted. Not to live in his house, not luxury, not repayment only to know he wasn't hungry, wasn't lost in Lagos. Meanwhile, he lived in a mansion inside the estate, a house powered, whether he admitted it or not, by money squeezed from her years and her body, and she wasn't there to claim a room. She wasn't there to demand respect. She was there because a mother's heart is not satisfied by rumors of success. It needs to see, just once, that the child you poured your life into did not disappear into darkness. So she came to the gate, with her small handbag, with quiet dignity, with no anger in her hands, only the fragile hope that maybe her son would look at her and remember. And even after the words, "That's not my mother," were spoken, Mama Nika still carried one truth inside her like something sacred. She didn't want to live with her son. She only wanted to know he was okay. At first, it was only one curtain shifting. A woman across the street paused in the middle of watering her flowers, the stream from her hose bending toward the ground as her attention snapped to the gate. Then a man in a neat polo stepped out of his compound with his phone in hand, pretending he had business outside, even though his eyes kept returning to the same scene. In estates like this, silence is expensive, and anything that disturbs it becomes entertainment. The old woman remained where the gate had rejected her, on the outside line of the world her son had chosen. She did not sit on the curb or lean against the wall. She stood, shoulders straight, handbag held close to her chest like a shield, like a secret, like the last piece of herself she could control. She was not trying to embarrass anyone, but the estate didn't know how to read dignity when it wasn't wearing designer fabric. To them, she was a stain, something misplaced. The guard by the booth looked at her, then away, then back again, hoping she would disappear on her own so he wouldn't have to deal with her. His colleague inside pretended to check the cameras, but watched her reflection in the tinted glass. The neighbor's stares sharpened, curious, annoyed, judging. Then, as if the estate itself had a heartbeat, the balcony door opened again. The daughter-in-law stepped out holding a glowing phone, the kind that suggested someone important was listening. Her face was calm but irritated, the irritation of a life forced to acknowledge a reality it didn't want. She leaned over the rail and called down, "Why are you still there?" Her voice carried too clearly. More curtains moved. The mother lifted her gaze slowly. "I came to see my son," she said. The daughter-in-law scoffed. "People come here every week saying that. You think mentioning his name lets you enter?" The mother's jaw tightened. "I don't want to enter. I only want to greet him." The daughter-in-law narrowed her eyes and decided she would not allow this woman to be treated like a person, not in front of her neighbors. She spoke sharply to the guards. The guard approached with new authority. "Madam, you have to leave." The mother did not move. "You are causing attention." "Attention?" She repeated softly. "If you don't leave, we will call police." For a moment disbelief flashed in her eyes. Not that police could come, but that a mother could be threatened for wanting to see her child. She swallowed it down and looked toward the house again. The daughter-in-law snapped louder. "Don't stand there like you own the road. This is a private estate. If you want help, go to the street. Help as if motherhood was charity." The mother tightened her grip on her handbag. "I'm not asking for help. I'm asking to see my son." The daughter-in-law laughed and called toward the house, "Chike." The name echoed and hope flickered in the mother's chest. Footsteps followed. The door opened and Chike came out again, walking closer to the gate so everyone could see his face clearly. The neighbors leaned in. The guards straightened. Even the air paused. His suit fit perfectly, expensive in a quiet way. He carried himself like a man who feared humiliation more than he feared God. His eyes landed on his mother. Recognition flickered, then vanished. "This woman is still here," the daughter-in-law announced. "She's disturbing people." Chike saw the neighbors and the phones. Embarrassment flashed across his face. He didn't ask how she got there, if she had eaten, or why she came. "Why didn't you remove her?" he asked the guard. "Sir," she said. "I don't care what she said," Chike snapped, sharp with fear of being seen, of being linked to a past he had escaped. The mother stepped closer to the gate. "Chike, it is me." Fury crossed his face, not hatred but panic. "You are not my mother," he said louder so the estate could hear. A murmur spread. "I carried you," she whispered. "Stop," he barked. The word cut like a whip. "Get her out of here," he told the guards. The guard hesitated, but stepped forward. "Madam, please, you have to go." She searched her son's face for one crack, one softening. There was none. She nodded once. "Okay, I will go." Her voice was calm, too calm. The neighbor's curiosity turned to discomfort. She turned and walked away slowly, sandals scraping the road, dignity intact. Behind her, the daughter-in-law relaxed, the guards eased, and Chike stood tense before turning toward the house. Then the sound of tires rolled across the clean pavement, slow, heavy, different. A black car entered and stopped at the driveway. The mother had taken only 3 steps when she heard it and paused. Important people arrived quietly. The guards stiffened, the neighbors leaned forward, Chike stopped, and the daughter-in-law froze in the doorway. The engine idled smoothly. The back door opened. A man in a crisp suit stepped out. A black car stopped in front of the house. The lawyer stepped out. He didn't slam the door or announce himself the way rich men in Lagos sometimes do, loudly, as if sound alone could buy respect. He moved with a different kind of authority, quiet, rehearsed, professional. The kind that didn't need to raise its voice because it carried paperwork. His shoes touched the driveway like they belonged there. His suit was charcoal gray, clean lines, no flashy patterns. A leather briefcase hung from his hand, the weight of it making his arm look steady, as if he had walked into scenes like this 100 times and never once allowed emotion to stain his face. Behind him, the black car idled. The driver stayed inside, eyes forward. The estate seemed to hold its breath. The guards stiffened at attention, suddenly remembering respect. The neighbors watching from across the road went still, phones hovering but not quite lifted, as if they sensed this was no longer gossip. Even the daughter-in-law paused halfway through closing her door, one hand on the frame, chin lifting slightly. She could smell importance, and she wanted to know if it threatened her. The lawyer's eyes swept the scene once: gate, guards, mansion, the well-dressed man by the driveway. The elderly woman already turned away as if she had been dismissed from reality. His gaze landed on her, not with pity, but with purpose. He took 2 measured steps toward the gate and asked clearly, politely, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Excuse me, is Mrs. Nika Okafor here?" The mother froze. Her full name, spoken in that estate like it belonged there, stopped her feet. She turned slowly, cautiously, as if she feared her name was a trick. Her eyes locked onto the man in the suit. For a moment nobody moved. The air tightened. Then she stepped closer, not to the gate, but to the sound of her identity being called like it mattered. "I am Nika," she said, low and controlled. "Who are you?" The lawyer nodded once, as if confirming what he already knew. "My name is Barrister Akinwole," he said. "I'm here on behalf of a legal matter." The daughter-in-law's face tightened instantly. "Legal matter?" she repeated, stepping forward as if attitude could block law. "Who sent you?" "Because if this is about money, we don't." The lawyer lifted his gaze to her calmly, the way a man looks at noise. "I'm not here for you, madam," he said. "I'm here for her." The daughter-in-law blinked hard. Across the driveway, Chike's posture shifted, shoulders squared, eyes narrowed. He didn't like strangers arriving with authority. In his world, authority was supposed to be his. He walked closer and stopped behind the barrier, careful to keep the gate between himself and the mother, as if distance could protect him from being connected to her. "What is going on?" he demanded. The lawyer turned to him slowly, respectful but edged with warning. "Sir, are you Mr. Chike Okafor?" "Yes," Chike replied, impatience leaking through. "Who are you, and why are you calling for her at my home?" "My apologies," the lawyer said smoothly. "I didn't realize you would refer to this as your home." The words were polite, but they landed like a small blade. A faint murmur ran through the neighbors. The guard by the booth shifted, uneasy, as if the ground beneath the story was moving. The daughter-in-law's eyes flashed. "What kind of insult is that?" she snapped. The lawyer ignored her again and turned back to the mother, his voice gentle but official. "Ma'am, I need to confirm your identity. Do you have any form of ID?" The mother's hand went straight to her handbag, the same handbag she had clutched all morning like it contained her dignity. She opened it slowly. Her fingers didn't shake. She pulled out a worn purse and then a laminated card that had seen better years and passed it through the opening near the gate. The lawyer examined it, nodded once, then returned it to her. "Thank you," he said. "That's all I needed." Shaik scoffed, forcing a laugh that sounded wrong. So you came here because of her ID? For what, to help her scam people? The daughter-in-law grabbed that word like proof. Exactly, she said loudly, turning toward the neighbors as if begging them to agree. This is Lagos. People do anything. She came here to embarrass us, and now she brought— Madam, the lawyer interrupted, still calm. Please be quiet. Silence dropped, not because she wanted it to, but because everyone heard something in his voice that wasn't negotiable. The daughter-in-law stared, shocked, then looked at Shaik for defense. But Shaik's eyes were on the briefcase because men fear paperwork more than gossip. The lawyer set the briefcase on the hood of the black car, unlatched it, and opened it with precision. Inside were documents organized, clean, official, the kind that smell like stamp ink and consequences. He pulled out a folder and held it up slightly, like a teacher lifting a lesson. This is not a matter of charity, he said, and it is not a matter of scandal. It is a matter of property. The word property hit Shaik like a punch. The daughter-in-law's brows knit. What property? She demanded. The lawyer flipped open the folder, withdrew papers, and spoke with the confidence of a man whose weapon was truth. The property located at this address, he said, gesturing toward the mansion, was purchased under the name Nika Okafor. The neighbors went still. The guards stiffened like statues. Shaik's face didn't change at first, because his mind refused the sentence. Then his eyes narrowed and his voice came out too controlled. That's not possible. That house is mine. The lawyer met him with mild sympathy, like he had heard denial before. It is possible, he replied. It is documented. The daughter-in-law laughed sharp, defensive. This is a scam. My husband built this house. Do you know how much it cost? Who is this woman? She— Madam, the lawyer said again, polite and calm. Please stop talking. Her face flushed. She had been silenced in her own house, in front of her neighbors, and she didn't know yet it would get worse. Shaik stepped forward and gripped the bars of the gate as if metal could hold reality in place. Where did you get those documents? He demanded. From the land registry, the lawyer said. From the bank records. From the signed agreements filed years ago. He turned a page, then another, tracing a line with his finger. And from the original proof of payment. The mother's throat tightened. Proof of payment. Evidence. The lawyer lifted his eyes to her. Ma'am, do you remember a transaction approximately 12 years ago? A payment made toward a property purchase? Funds transferred from your account and recorded under your name. The mother stared a long moment, then nodded once, slowly. Yes. Shaik snapped toward her, eyes wide, not with recognition of her as his mother, but fear of her as a fact. What are you saying? He hissed. Her voice stayed low, but it carried weight now because it was truth. I sent money, she said. For your business. The daughter-in-law looked between them, confusion turning to alarm. Shaik, what is she talking about? But he couldn't answer, because the answer would undress him in public. The lawyer spoke again, careful and clear. The funds were used as the down payment for this property. The legal title was registered under Mrs. Nika Okafor's name. The neighbors murmured louder. Someone whispered, God. Someone else whispered, so she owns it? The guard who had judged her clothes now looked at her face differently, as if seeing a person for the first time. Shaik tried to regain control. There must be a mistake. She doesn't even live here. She doesn't. He stopped because every sentence sounded worse than the last. The lawyer closed the folder halfway and looked at him neutrally. There is no mistake, he said. Mr. Okafor, you have been residing in this property. But legally, you are not the owner. The daughter-in-law gasped real, not performed, and clutched her chest. What? No, that's not Shaik. Shaik's eyes burned with rage, but rage has nowhere to go when the enemy is paper. You can't punch a registry. You can't bully a signature. The lawyer reached into the briefcase again and removed a plain envelope, slightly thick, and held it out toward the mother. Mrs. Okafor, he said, this is for you. The mother stared, not reaching immediately. because she had lived too long in a world where gifts carried thorns. The lawyer softened slightly, understanding. "These are copies of the title documents," he explained. "And," he paused, "the house keys." The daughter-in-law's breath caught. Chike turned pale. The estate seemed to tilt. The mother took the envelope through the bars. It was heavier than she expected, not because of the keys, but because of what they represented. The lawyer nodded once, sealing the moment. "I was instructed to deliver these to you personally," he said, "because there has been concern that you have been denied access to your own property." A long silence followed, not because nobody had words, but because words were useless now. Chike stared at the envelope in his mother's hands like it was a weapon. The daughter-in-law stood frozen, mouth slightly open, eyes wide, trying to understand how her perfect life could be sitting on someone else's name. The guards didn't move. The neighbors didn't whisper anymore. Even the air felt like it stopped, afraid to disturb the new truth. The mother lowered her gaze to the envelope, then slowly opened it. Inside were neat, stamped papers and a small set of keys that caught the sunlight and flashed like justice. The mother didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply held them. And in that stillness, the entire estate understood the same thing at once. The woman they tried to erase was the one holding the keys. No one could say anything. No one moved. Not the guards, not the neighbors, not even Chike, because there are moments when the world rearranges itself and sound becomes afraid to exist inside them. The keys rested in the old woman's palm, small and ordinary yet heavier than the mansion behind the gate. For the first time that morning, the space no longer belonged to the people who lived inside it. It belonged to the truth. The daughter-in-law's breathing grew uneven. She looked from the keys to the house, then back to the woman she had just ordered away. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Chike's jaw tightened, but the anger had nowhere to go. Pride needs witnesses. Shame does not. Across the street, a phone slowly lowered. A curtain fell back into place. The audience the estate relied on no longer felt safe to watch. The lawyer closed his briefcase with a quiet click that sounded louder than a shout. "Ma'am," he said gently, "would you like to enter your home?" The question did not echo. It sank. The mother did not step forward, not yet. She only looked at the gate, at the distance between her and the son who had buried her while she was still alive. And for the first time, Chike could not look away. That was what made the moment unbearable. If she had shouted, pointed at the gate, and demanded they kneel and beg, everyone would have understood. Lagos understands vengeance. It understands power flipping like a coin. It understands humiliation returned with interest. But Mama Nika did none of that. She simply stood there with the envelope in her hands, the keys resting in her palm like something too heavy to celebrate. Her face did not glow with victory, and her eyes did not sharpen with revenge. She only looked tired, not from standing outside a gate, but from carrying a love that had been misused. The lawyer cleared his throat politely, as if giving the estate permission to breathe again. "Ma'am, would you like me to assist you with?" Mama Nika shook her head softly. "No, it is okay." She slipped the papers back into the envelope carefully, then held the keys with both hands for a second, staring at them as if she didn't recognize what life had just handed her. On the other side of the gate, Chike stood rigid, his pride struggling to survive the collapse. The daughter-in-law's face had gone pale. The guards waited uncertainly, their eyes drifting toward the keys. The neighbors leaned forward in silence, no longer entertained but witnessing consequences. Chike swallowed hard and stepped closer to the gate, gripping the bars. "Mama." It was the first time he had called her that publicly. She turned slowly, not melting, not rushing, only confirming she heard correctly. Their eyes met, and in that look lived years of hunger, work, waiting, short phone calls, and belief. "I didn't know," he tried. The words sounded small. "You didn't know?" She repeated quietly, disbelief deeper than anger. He tried again, voice cracking, but no language could repair what he had done. The daughter-in-law suddenly stepped forward, trembling. "This is nonsense. Chaik, tell him they're lying. How can the house be in her name?" "Stop," Chaik snapped, this time desperate. He looked at his mother again, searching her face as if trying to resurrect the woman he buried in his mind. "Mama," she inhaled slowly, deciding what ending she would allow. "I didn't come for the house," she said. Chaik flinched. "I came for my son." The sentence moved through the air like ripples in still water. Chaik's expression collapsed, not into anger or embarrassment, but realization. He had feared being seen as poor, but now he was seen as ungrateful, and that was worse. His shoulders trembled. "Mama, please," the word sounded foreign. She neither punished him with silence nor rewarded him with forgiveness. She only looked at him long enough to accept who he had become. "I didn't come to fight. I didn't come to take anything." Her eyes moved briefly to the mansion. "All this, it is heavy. You are heavy now too." He lowered his head, finally looking like her child. "I was ashamed," he confessed, voice breaking. "Ashamed of where I came from." She understood, but understanding did not erase pain. She stepped closer to the gate. "You were ashamed of me," she corrected gently. His face crumpled. He whispered apologies that were never enough. She exhaled slowly. "Stand up," he obeyed, wanting to be her son again. The guard hurried to open the gate. When it opened, it did not feel like victory. It felt like a funeral. Mama Nika stepped inside, not claiming ownership but walking into a place she had paid for and never wanted. She passed the daughter-in-law without a glance and walked through polished floors and expensive scent. Chaik followed like a shadow, dignity slipping from him. In the living room, she stopped at the center table and looked around once, not impressed, only quiet. "Mama, please," he began. She raised her hand. "Listen," he fell silent. She removed the keys and placed them gently on the table, carefully, deliberately, like an offering. Chaik stared at them as if watching a verdict. She looked at him one last time. "I prayed for you to have a life bigger than mine. You have it. But don't let it swallow your heart." His lips trembled. "Mama, don't go." She met his eyes. "I need to go." She turned and walked toward the door, steady and calm. He followed but did not touch her. At the doorway she paused and said softly, "You can keep the house, but don't lose your soul." Then she stepped into the Lagos sunlight. Behind her, inside the mansion, the keys remained on the table, and for the first time, no one in that house knew what to say. Some children fear growing up poor, but the real tragedy is growing up without gratitude. He built a house to escape his past, yet the only thing he almost lost was the person who built him. Wealth can change your address, only love decides your home. Remember this: a parent may survive your distance, but not your denial.